Welcome to the Timeless Tales Library, where each story is a soft key that unlocks the quiet spaces of your imagination. I'm Theodore, your host for the evening, and tonight I'll be sharing a gentle tale meant to calm your thoughts and carry you peacefully towards sleep. This haven of restful stories is brought to life by listeners like you. If you found solace here, please consider subscribing to help us continue weaving these serene narratives. As you settle in, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below letting me know where you're listening from and share a place you dream of a story taking you. Perhaps a lighthouse on a windswept cliff, a lantern-lit street in Kyoto, a cozy bookshop in the rain, or a meadow beneath the northern lights. Your dreams keep our little library warm and glowing. This story is about a snow-dusted evening when the rainy day Christmas village cottage bakery becomes a sanctuary for wanderers seeking refuge from winter's chill. As Christmas lights twinkle through frosted windows and the scent of spiced baking fills the air, strangers from beloved tales find themselves drawn together by warmth, wonder, and the promise of something sweet, discovering that sometimes the greatest gift is simply a safe place to rest. Now close your eyes and take a long, quiet breath. Tonight, your journey leads to the Lantern Hall in the Timeless Tales Library. Lanterns hover above every shelf, glowing with warm, colourful light. Each lantern illuminates a story, and the reflection of their glow shimmers across polished wood floors. The gentle scent of parchment and wax fills the air, soft and comforting. Sink into your bed, your cozy corner in this luminous hall. Release your hands, your shoulders, your toes. Let the gentle sway of the lantern's glow lull your body and mind into stillness. Follow the path of light along the shelves. Let each lantern's story drift into your imagination, carrying you softly into the calm of night. The Coziest rainy Christmas village cottage bakery, a winter bedtime story. The evening arrived wrapped in twilight and snow. It was the kind of December evening that makes the world feel hushed and expectant, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. The snow had been falling since noon, not the wild, blowing snow of a blizzard, but the steady, determined snow that accumulates quietly, transforming the familiar into something magical. Each flake was perfect, crystalline, catching what little light remained in the pewter sky before settling onto rooftops, tree branches, and the cobblestone streets of the village. And there, at the heart of the village, where three narrow streets converged like streams flowing together, stood the rainy day Christmas village cottage bakery. It had stood there for generations, some said centuries, though no one could quite remember when it had first appeared. The building itself seemed to have grown from the ground rather than been built upon it, all warm stone and dark timber, with a peaked roof now heavy with snow and windows that glowed like captured stars. Tonight, those windows were especially beautiful. Each one was framed with evergreen garlands and strings of cranberries, and through the frost-etched glass, golden light spilled out onto the snow-covered street. If you looked closely, and on a night like this several passers-by did, you could see the shapes moving inside, the flicker of firelight, the silhouette of someone moving with practiced grace, the steam rising from something wonderful happening in the kitchen. Inside the bakery was a masterpiece of winter coziness. The ceiling beams, dark with age and polish, were draped with swags of pine and holly tied with red velvet ribbons. From these hung small ornaments, hand-carved wooden stars, tiny brass bells, and delicate glass spheres that caught and fractured the light into rainbow fragments. A massive stone fireplace dominated the eastern wall, its hearth wide enough to stand in, flames dancing over logs of apple wood and cherry that released sweet smoke up the broad chimney. The furniture was an eclectic collection gathered over decades. A burgundy velvet settee with carved wooden feet, wingback chairs upholstered in forest green, a window seat with cushions the colour of cream and cranberries. Small tables were scattered throughout, each one bearing an oil lamp with a painted glass shade. One showed a winter forest, another a choir of angels, a third a family gathered around a tree. Against the back wall stood the display case, and it was here that the true enchantment of the Christmas village Cottage bakery revealed itself. Behind curved glass that had been decorated with painted snowflakes, the evening's offerings were arranged like treasures in a museum. There were stolen breads, thick with candied fruit and marzipan, dusted so heavily with powdered sugar they looked like they'd been caught in their own private snowstorm. There were gingerbread houses, not for decoration but for eating, with roofs of chocolate and windows of spun sugar. There were Christmas cookies in the shapes of stars, trees, angels, and bells, each one iced with intricate designs in white and gold. And there were special items, mysterious pastries and breads that seemed to appear specifically for certain visitors, as if the baker could sense who was coming and what their soul most needed. The baker moved through the kitchen in the back, humming a carol that was older than memory, working with flour-dusted hands and a peaceful expression. The scent that emanated from the kitchen was beyond description. Cinnamon and nutmeg certainly, but also vanilla and almond, brown sugar and butter, cardamom and clove, and underneath it all something that smelled like comfort itself, like every happy Christmas memory distilled into aroma. Outside, the snow continued to fall. The wind picked up slightly, not harsh but persistent, rattling the shutters and making the warmth inside feel even more precious. The village clock tower struck 6, its bells muffled by the snow sounding like they were ringing from very far away. The bell above the bakery door chimed, a clear, pure sound like a small silver hand bell. The first visitor entered on a gust of cold air and snowflakes. He was an elderly man, but spry, with a woodworker's strong hands and sawdust still clinging to his woolen coat despite the snow. His face was weathered and kind, with deep laugh lines around his eyes and a white mustache that twitched when he smiled. He carried the scent of pine shavings and varnish. "Geppetto," the baker called from the kitchen, warmth in every syllable. "Welcome. Please, come in from the cold." The old woodcarver, for that is precisely what he was, the very same who had once carved a puppet that became a real boy, looked surprised and pleased to be recognized. "You know me, but I've never been here before." At least I don't think I have." He paused, looking around as if trying to remember. "Though it feels familiar somehow. All good bakeries feel familiar," the baker said, emerging with a tray. "They remind us of the best parts of home." Geppetto removed his snow-covered coat and hung it carefully on a peg by the door, then approached the fire with his hands extended. "Ah," he sighed. "I've been in my workshop all day, and I'm afraid I let the fire go out. Got too focused on a rocking horse I'm making for the neighbor's grandson. By the time I noticed the cold, my fingers were too stiff to whittle properly." "Then this will help," the baker said, setting the tray on a table beside a comfortable armchair. On it sat a cup of hot chocolate so rich and thick it was almost pudding, topped with freshly whipped cream and shavings of dark chocolate. Beside it was a plate bearing something special: bomboloni, Italian donuts filled with vanilla cream and rolled in sugar still warm from frying. Geppetto's eyes grew bright. "Bomboloni! I haven't had these since I was a boy in Tuscany. How did you know?" The baker simply smiled and returned to the kitchen, leaving Geppetto to settle into the armchair, with wonder written across his weathered face. He took a sip of the chocolate first, and the warmth spread through him like liquid contentment. Then he bit into a bombolone, and the sugar crunched, the dough yielded, the cream spilled out sweet and perfect. And for a moment he was 7 years old again, standing in his mother's kitchen, watching her fry these very treats for Christmas Eve. "Magnifico," he whispered to himself, to the fire, to the falling snow beyond the window. The warmth seeped into his bones. His fingers began to thaw. He took another sip of chocolate, another bite of bombolone, and felt the day's tension, the worry about finishing commissions, the loneliness of an empty workshop since Pinocchio had grown up and gone to seek his fortune, begin to ease. "I am grateful," he said softly to the empty room that wasn't quite empty, because the baker was always somehow present even when not visible. "So very grateful." Outside, the snow continued its gentle accumulation. Inside, the fire crackled peacefully. The bell chimed again. This time a young woman entered, though young was relative, as she had the kind of face that would look essentially the same at 16 or 60. She had luminous grey-green eyes, a cascade of red hair partially covered by a snow-dusted bonnet, and an expression of such wonder and delight that she seemed to bring her own light into the room. "Oh!" she exclaimed, pausing just inside the door to take in the scene. "Oh, this is exactly like something out of a story. Better even, because I can smell it. And you can't smell things in stories, which has always seemed like a terrible oversight to me." Geppetto chuckled, charmed immediately. "A philosopher," he said. "Anne Shirley," she said, introducing herself as she unwound a long scarf from around her neck. "From Avonlea, though I'm travelling for the holidays to visit friends. I got turned around in the snow. Everything looks different when it's all white, doesn't it? And I saw your lights. I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all," Geppetto assured her. "I think this place is meant for wanderers." Anne removed her coat. practical but clearly beloved, mended in several places with careful stitches, and approached the fire from a different angle, warming her hands with evident pleasure. "I've always loved snow," she said dreamily, "but I'll admit I was getting rather cold and hungry. Is that gingerbread I smell? No, wait, it's more than gingerbread. It's like Christmas itself decided to become a scent." The baker appeared with perfect timing, carrying a tray laden with treats that seemed designed specifically for a romantic soul. Raspberry tarts with latticed tops that showed the jewel red filling beneath, shortbread cut into stars and dusted with sparkly sugar, and a steaming cup of cranberry tea with honey. But the centerpiece was a slice of something special, a layered cake with cream and berries, each layer visible through the side like a beautiful cross-section of winter. "Cranberry cream cake," the baker said, "and tea from the wild raspberries that grow near Avonlea." Anne's eyes widened. "You know about Avonlea?" "Everyone knows about places where love lives," the baker said simply, and disappeared back into the kitchen before Anne could ask what that meant. Anne settled into the window seat, tucking her legs beneath her, and took a sip of tea. It tasted like summer captured and kept safe for winter, like all the warm days she'd spent with Diana and Gilbert, picking berries and dreaming dreams. "This is perfect," she breathed. "Absolutely perfect. If I were to write a story about the most perfect place to take shelter from a snowstorm, I would write exactly this." "You're a writer?" Geppetto asked with interest. "I want to be," Anne said. "I teach right now, but I write stories when I can, about people and places and feelings, about the way beauty can appear in unexpected moments." She gestured around the bakery. "Like this." "I make things from wood," Geppetto said. "But I understand. We're both trying to create beauty, just with different materials." They fell into easy conversation, these two makers from different generations and different stories. Anne ate her tart delicately, savouring each bite, exclaiming over the way the raspberry filling was both sweet and tart, the way the crust crumbled just so. Geppetto finished his bomboloni and watched the snow fall, feeling more at peace than he had in months. The fire burned steadily. The candles in their painted shades cast dancing patterns across the walls. Outside, the snow began to fall more heavily, but inside all was warmth and safety. The bell rang a third time, and a draught of cold air brought with it the scent of salt water and distant spices. The man who entered was neither old nor young, but weathered in a way that spoke of sun and sea wind rather than age. He wore clothing that suggested far-off lands, loose pants, a vest embroidered with gold thread, a turban now spotted with melting snowflakes. His eyes were dark and held the reflections of 1,000 horizons. "Sinbad," he introduced himself with a slight bow, "called the Sailor, though at the moment I'm a traveller by land, which is far less familiar territory. I seem to have wandered rather far from the inn where I meant to stay. The snow, you understand, it obscures landmarks." "You're most welcome," Anne said immediately. "I'm Anne, and this is Geppetto. We're fellow refugees from the storm." Sinbad smiled. and it was the smile of someone who had seen wonders and terrors in equal measure, but chose to focus on the wonders. Then I'm in good company. He removed his heavy outer robe, revealing beneath it a simple shirt and vest, and approached the fire with evident relief. The baker emerged. Had they been waiting just out of sight, carrying a tray that made Sinbad stop and stare? On it was a feast of delicacies from his homeland. Date-filled mahamel cookies dusted with powdered sugar, baklava glistening with honey and studded with pistachios, small pastries shaped like crescents and filled with almonds. There was also a copper pot of sweet mint tea and a small glass cup. "How can this be?" Sinbad asked, wonder in his voice. "I am thousands of miles from Damascus, from Baghdad, from the cities of my youth. How can these treats be here, fresh and perfect?" "Good baking transcends distance," the baker said. "Please, eat. You've been travelling long." Sinbad settled into the burgundy settee with his tray and took a sip of tea that immediately brought moisture to his eyes. "It tastes like home," he said quietly. "Like my mother's house. Like the tea gardens of my youth, like everything I left behind when I took to the seas." "Do you miss it?" Anne asked gently. "The sea?" "Sometimes," Sinbad admitted, taking a piece of baklava. "But I've learnt that adventure has its seasons. I've had my fill of storms and shipwrecks, of rocks and whales and islands that are not what they seem. Now I travel by land, telling stories of the sea to those who'll listen. It's a different kind of journey." "I think," Geppetto said thoughtfully, "that we all reach a point where we trade one kind of adventure for another. The quieter kind can be just as valuable." Sinbad nodded, chewing slowly, savouring the honey and nuts. "This is true. Tonight, for instance, stumbling into this bakery, meeting you both, eating these memories made edible, this is an adventure of its own, a gentle one." They talked quietly, these three travellers from such different worlds, a woodcarver from Italy, a dreamer from Canada, a sailor from Arabia, finding common ground in the simple experience of shelter and sweetness. The fire warmed them, the treats nourished them. The snow outside made the inside feel all the more precious. The bell chimed again, and this time the sound was accompanied by a bright, clear laugh. The girl who entered was perhaps 12, with rosy cheeks and bright eyes, and blonde braids emerging from beneath a red knitted cap. She was followed by a flurry of snowflakes and an air of mountain freshness, as if she'd brought the alpine hills with her. "Heidi," she announced cheerfully, stomping snow from her boots. "From the mountains, though I'm visiting my grandfather's friend in the village for Christmas. What a lovely storm. Though I'll admit I'm glad to find shelter. Even I was getting a bit chilly, and I'm used to mountain weather." She was welcomed immediately into the warm circle, introduced to everyone, and settled near the fire with the easy comfort of someone who'd never met a stranger. The baker brought her hot apple cider with cinnamon sticks, cheese and bread, because mountain children need substantial food, and something special, Basler Leckerli, Swiss cookies made with honey, almonds and candied peel spiced with cinnamon and clove. "Oh," Heidi exclaimed, biting into one. "These are just like the ones from the village near the Alm. How wonderful!" She ate with enthusiasm, telling stories between bites about her grandfather, about the goats. Peter still watched them, she reported, about the beauty of the mountains in winter. Her joy was infectious, and everyone found themselves smiling, drawn into her bright world. "You must miss the mountains when you're in the village," Anne said. "I do," Heidi admitted, "but I've learned that you can love two places at once. The mountains are my heart, but the village has grandfather's friend and the school and the bakery. Different kinds of happiness." The conversation continued, weaving together stories from mountains and seas, from workshops and imaginary lands. The bakery held them all, making space for each person's story, each person's comfort. The bell rang twice more in quick succession. First entered a tall, dignified man with a pronounced beard, sharp features, and eyes that held both profound intelligence and deep sorrow. He wore a long dark coat dusted with snow, and he moved with the careful deliberation of someone accustomed to commanding respect. "Captain Nemo," he said formally with a slight bow. "Formerly of the Nautilus, currently between journeys. I was not expecting to find myself in a village bakery this evening, but the snow drove me to seek shelter." Before anyone could respond, the door opened again, and a woman entered, older than Heidi but young still, perhaps in her 30s, with a practical bun, a worn but clean dress beneath her coat, and eyes that had seen both darkness and light. "Gretel," she said simply. "Just Gretel. I'm travelling through seeking... well, I'm not entirely sure what I'm seeking, but I saw your lights, and they looked like safety." The room grew fuller but not crowded. Somehow the bakery accommodated everyone, creating perfect spaces for each new arrival. Captain Nemo was given a wingback chair, Gretel a spot on the settee near Sinbad. The baker brought treats tailored to each. For Nemo, who had travelled beneath the seas, a beautiful blue cake infused with lavender and decorated with white frosting that looked like waves, accompanied by Earl Grey tea. For Gretel, who had once been lost in a dark forest, bread, simple, honest, good bread with butter and jam accompanied by milk with honey. Gretel held the bread in her hands as if it were precious, tears gathering in her eyes. "I once followed a trail of breadcrumbs," she said softly, "and lost my way terribly. But this is bread given freely with kindness. It's the opposite of that trail. It's sustenance and safety." "The past cannot be changed," Captain Nemo said, his voice deep and thoughtful, "but it can be transformed by new experiences. We are more than our worst moments. We're also more than our greatest adventures," Sinbad added. "We're the sum of many small moments like this one." Anne raised her teacup. "To small moments," she said, "and to strangers who become friends over treats and tea." They all lifted their cups, glasses, mugs, a mismatched collection that somehow fit perfectly together. "To safe harbours," Geppetto added. "To warmth," Heidi said. "To home, wherever we find it," Gretel whispered. "To peace," Captain Nemo concluded. They drank together, a silent toast that needed no further words. The baker watched from the kitchen doorway, a soft smile on their face, then returned to work. Soon the scent of something new filled the air, something that smelled like every good thing about Christmas, about winter, about comfort and joy. The fire burned lower, and the baker emerged to add logs, apple and cherry that caught quickly and sent up sweet-smelling smoke. The snow outside had become a proper storm now, wind-driven and thick, but inside the bakery the storm was simply entertainment, something to make the warmth more appreciated. "I'd like to ask," Anne said softly, addressing the group, "what Christmas means to each of you, if it means anything. I know we're all from different places, different times perhaps." There was a thoughtful silence. Captain Nemo spoke first, surprisingly. "I spent many Christmases alone beneath the sea, deliberately isolated from humanity. But Christmas always found me, in memories, in the way even the ocean seemed quieter on Christmas Eve. It meant the possibility of redemption, I suppose, of connection, even when I refused it." Gretel looked into the fire. "Christmas was complicated in my childhood, but as I grew older, I learned that holidays are what we make them. Now Christmas means safety, warmth, enough food, and people who care. Simple things that once seemed impossible." Sinbad smiled. "In my travels, I celebrated many different holidays in many different lands. Christmas, when I encountered it, seemed to me a celebration of light in darkness, of generosity, of storytelling. I appreciated those things." Geppetto's voice was gentle. "Christmas is when I remember all the people I've loved. My wife gone these many years, Pinocchio now grown and on his own adventures. It's bittersweet but beautiful, a time for memories and gratitude." Heidi bounced slightly in her seat. "Christmas is the best. It's grandfather coming down to the village and singing carols and special treats and everything covered in snow and looking magical. It's joy made visible." Anne nodded to each speaker, absorbing their words. "For me," she said finally, "Christmas is about kindred spirits, about finding your people even if they're different from you. It's about believing in magic and beauty even when the world seems cold. It's about imagination and hope." They sat with these thoughts, each person reflecting on their own relationship with this season, this time of year when darkness was deepest, but lights shone brightest. The baker emerged once more, this time carrying a large platter, and on it was the final creation of the evening, a bûche de Noël, a Christmas log cake. But this one was extraordinary. It was covered in chocolate bark so realistic it looked like wood, with meringue mushrooms nestled at the base, with powdered sugar dusted over it like fresh snow, with marzipan leaves and berries. It was art, but art meant to be eaten, shared, enjoyed. "For all of you," the baker said, setting it on the central table. "For this evening, this gathering, this moment. Please, share it together." They gathered around, all 7 of them from different stories, different worlds, different experiences, and the baker cut slices, serving each person a piece of this edible winter wonderland. The cake was perfect. The chocolate was rich but not too sweet. The cream filling was light and flavored with rum and vanilla. The texture was like snow itself, solid but somehow melting, substantial but delicate. "This is the best thing I've ever tasted," Heidi declared, and no one disagreed. They ate slowly, savouring each bite, talking quietly between forkfuls. The conversation drifted from topic to topic, memories of past holidays, hopes for future ones, stories of travels and homecomings, observations about the snow, the fire, the warmth. Captain Nemo, who had seemed so stern upon arrival, was coaxed into telling a story about Christmas beneath the sea, how the fish seemed to school in different patterns, how the water caught light differently, how even in his self-imposed exile he had felt connected to something larger. Gretel shared how she had learned to bake, taking the trauma of the gingerbread house and transforming it into skill and art, reclaiming sweets as something joyful rather than dangerous. Sinbad told a brief tale of a Christmas spent in a port far from home, how sailors from a dozen different lands had come together to celebrate, each bringing their own traditions, creating something new and beautiful from the mixture. The fire crackled, the candles burned steadily, the snow continued to fall, but more gently now, the wind easing the storm beginning to exhaust itself. The baker moved among them, refilling cups, bringing out warm blankets, transforming the bakery from a shelter into something more a home, temporary but real. "I think," Anne said dreamily, her head resting against the window frame, "that I'll remember this evening for the rest of my life, not because anything extraordinary happened, but because something ordinary happened extraordinarily well." "Perfect ordinariness," Geppetto agreed. "The warmth of fire, the taste of good food, the company of good people. What more could anyone want?" "Nothing," Captain Nemo said firmly. "This is enough. More than enough." One by one, they began to settle into chosen spots for rest. The storm outside had gentled to a whisper, the snow now falling in that peaceful, steady way that promises accumulation but no danger. Geppetto dozed in his armchair, a blanket tucked around him, a slight smile on his weathered face. Sinbad stretched out on the settee, his head on a cushion, his breathing deep and even, dreaming perhaps of gentle seas. Anne curled up in the window seat, wrapped in a quilt, her face turned toward the falling snow, completely at peace. Heidi lay on a rug near the fire on her back, her hands folded on her stomach, sleeping with the complete abandon of a child who has never known a moment's insecurity. Captain Nemo sat upright in the wingback chair, but his eyes were closed, his features relaxed for perhaps the first time in years, his hands folded peacefully in his lap. Gretel chose a corner of the settee, curled up small, a blanket pulled to her chin, finally allowing herself to feel safe enough to truly rest. The baker moved among them, adjusting blankets, banking the fire so it would burn low and steady through the night, blowing out candles that had burned down to stubs. The bakery settled around its guests, the old timbers creaking contentedly, the windows holding back the cold, the walls containing all this warmth and peace and quiet joy. Outside, the storm had passed. The snow continued, but gently, adding to the blanket already covering the village. The moon appeared between clouds, its light reflecting off the snow, filling the world with a soft, silvery glow. Inside the rainy day Christmas village cottage bakery, 7 souls rested. They had come from different stories, seeking different things, carrying different burdens. But here, in this magical space that existed perhaps between pages, perhaps in the collective imagination of everyone who has ever sought comfort, they found what they needed: warmth, safety, sweetness, and connection. The fire burned to embers, still providing gentle heat. The moonlight through the windows provided enough light to see by, enough to make the sleeping faces peaceful, content, deeply at rest. The baker sat in a chair near the door, keeping watch, ensuring all was well. Tomorrow they would wake, refreshed and restored, ready to continue their journeys. Tomorrow there would be breakfast, fresh bread and jam, hot coffee and tea, pastries that would send them out into the world with full stomachs and fuller hearts. But that was tomorrow. Tonight was for rest, for peace, for the simple, profound gift of a warm place in a cold world, for the magic of strangers becoming friends over shared treats, for the promise that no matter how far we wander, there are places that will welcome us, feed us, warm us, and ask nothing in return but that we accept the gift. The rainy day, Christmas village cottage, bakery stood in the snow-covered village, its windows dark now save for the glow of embers and moonlight, its occupants sleeping peacefully, its purpose fulfilled once more. And outside, the snow continued to fall, each flake perfect, each one adding to the blanket of white that covered the world, making everything clean and new and full of possibility. Sleep now, the bakery watches over you. The storm has passed, the morning will come, but for now, rest, deep, peaceful, perfect rest. All is well, all is safe, all is warm. Sleep, sleep, sleep.